I'm going to show you a quick tutorial on how to make enlarged pores appear less visible. Although enlarged pores is an issue that you can sort out with the right skin treatments, it is a costly affair. It is something that does not happen overnight. And unlike acne, which you can clear up perfectly if you go on the right treatment or the right course of antibiotics and treatments, enlarged pores is something that's a little bit harder to treat. And you also want to be able to make it go away basically immediately. So this is my technique for making enlarged pores appear less visible. You're not going to need a whole lot of things. So first of all, you want to start off with your primer. There are quite a lot of pore minimizing primers on the market. And the trick with a primer is not just the fact that it's a pore minimizing primer. You've made the surface of the skin smooth. This is the most important step in getting pores looking smooth and actually making them disappear. So look at the areas where you have areas of concern and press the primer right into those areas to fill it up. If you have to, you can actually put primer onto a Q-tip or an earbud, as we call them in South Africa, and you press that into the areas that look like holes in the skin until that is completely filled up. My pores are concentrated across the center of my face, so across the nose, on the sides of the nose and a little bit on the forehead. So that is where I concentrate the biggest quantity of primer as well. Thereafter, you want to use your Tinted Moisturizer, BB cream, or any lightweight foundation. It's really important that this foundation is not one of those kind of foundations that has light reflecting particles in it, or rather kind of shimmery particles in. You also don't want to use a really matte or a really heavy coverage foundation. That might be contrary to what you think. You know, if you're suffering from oily skin, you want a matte foundation. If you're suffering from oily skin that has caused enlarged pores, you want something that is more heavy going and covering it up. That is not what you want to do. You want something that's really hydrating, that's really moisturizing, that's really lightweight, that is not going to sit inside those pores and look built up and create that textural look, or actually aggravate that textural look that's typical of enlarged pores. Start where you have your problem area. So I work from the center of the face and apply the product there first. Again, I apply with the beauty blender because I find the finish is much lighter and more blended and looks a little bit more like skin and less made up than when you apply it with a foundation brush. Once you've applied your foundation, give it a quick check to see if you need to blend in any areas a little bit more. Sometimes you'll find that foundation is actually kind of clogged into the pores, and what you want to do then is just grab your beauty blender again. Don't put any extra product on it. In fact, what you can do is you can dunk it in water again so that it's nice and moist, squeeze out the excess so that it's really nice and moist, and actually bounce the beauty blender just on those areas to lift off the extra foundation. Just rehydrate it and blend it again so that the finish is much softer. Lastly, you want to use powder really, really carefully. You want to get a powder that's incredibly finely milled. You don't want to use a regular face powder. You definitely don't want to use things like highlighters and shimmering powders, because all of these things are actually going to emphasize the texture of your skin. And it's going to show up your pores much worse than before. So your powder needs to be matte, it needs to be oil absorbing, and it needs to be so fine that when you rub it between your fingers, it has that silky feel and it basically disappears. I'm using a brush that is kind of tapered. I think these brushes work the best because they get into all the corners and crevices of the face. And I'm going to dust it on gently, just to the forehead, a little bit across the bridge of the nose, and under the eyes, next to the nose. I've never had issues with greasiness on the sides of my face really, so I'm not going to use powder there because you still want the finish to look natural and glowy. What I recommend, instead of using powder during the course of the day, if you tend to get greasy like on your nose and on your forehead as the day goes on, don't put on more powder. It often ends up making you look very made up. This is absolutely amazing. This is the blotterazzi Pro. I absolutely love it. You get it in the normal pink variation, which is the original, but this is the new one. It's black. Don't think you can see it. The blotterazzi is made to absorb oil, so you don't use it the normal way that you would use the beauty blender. You're not going to wet it, you're going to use it absolutely dry. And what is amazing about this is when you use it around your nose or on your forehead, it actually only absorbs the oil. It doesn't remove your makeup, it doesn't lift off your product, so you still have the color pigments of your foundation on, you still have your powder on, but it just sucks up that oil and the skin still looks glowy and healthy and natural. You don't get that overly caked, overly matte, overly flat look that you get when you powder your face on top of makeup that's been done hours earlier. And that is your poreless finish.